Hi, welcome to Bonita's Kitchen and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to be making today is a delicious baked roast with a duff pastry over the top. So let's get started. This recipe we're making today is a viewer's request, so I thank you right from the start for requesting this one, because this recipe is perfect whether you're doing it with a roast of beef or a roast of moose. You decide, that doesn't matter. But what we'll do first, I'm going to fry off the roast first into my cast iron frying pan, and as we go I'll tell you the seasonings we'll be using, and then when we get to making the duff I'll explain that for you. And that's a duff pastry, not one that we're going to steam. It's going to be baked in the oven. Okay, so let's get started with frying off our roast. Okay, so I got about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of roast beef, and any cut would do, it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to lightly season the roast first with a bit of salt and pepper. I did rinse it with a little bit of water first just to get any of the blood that was there on it off. And that was pepper, black pepper, salt, and a little bit of ground rosemary. Now this recipe, you could make it whatever way and add any seasonings that you like to add, but this is just basic seasonings that I'm going to add there now. So what I'm going to do is put a tablespoonful of butter in the pan and some oil, and then we'll put our roast in. Okay, I'm just going to dry off my hands. Alright, so what we're going to be doing is adding in, now you can do both or one or the other. I'm going to be putting in just a drizzle of oil and a tablespoonful of butter into my cast iron frying pan. When this melts down just a little bit, then I'm going to be adding the roast in there. Just put it off to the side, and then let it fry off on each side, because I want to caramelize this meat first before we start baking it. So we'll just let that start to fry. Okay, I'm just going to dry my hands there again. Alright, it smells absolutely amazing in here. Anytime that you're baking a roast, you can do this every time, even if you're not doing a pastry. And you can see it's nice and caramelized on that side. So we want to do the same thing with this other side by frying it off like this with the seasonings, and each time you cook any seasonings it really infuses those flavors. So while this is cooking, or frying I should say, again just to remind you, you could use any seasonings that you like to cook with, but just keep in mind you're going to be making a gravy with this, so you don't want a lot of really powerful spices. That's going to take away from the taste of your gravy, because this is an old-fashioned feed. And the person that requested it, apparently they made it, his father made it as a child, his parents, and they loved it, and I'm excited that we can do this for them today. So we'll continue frying that, and I'll tell you what's next. And again, to remind you, you can use any cut of roast you would like to use. I'm just using a plain blade roast. It's got a little bit of marbling in it, not much. Also, here in Newfoundland, we like to include our basic vegetables, which is turnip, which is rutabaga, really is the name, but we always call this turnip. And we're going to have some potatoes with it, carrot, and we're going to be using celery and onion after I take the roast out to fry in the juices that we're after creating there. And then once I sauteed that, then I'm going to add it in the roaster with this sauteed roast, and then I'll go over how long you would keep it in the oven per pound. Now normally when I'm cooking a roast myself for my family, I don't really be particular with time when I put it in, when I've taken it out, because when we're cooking a Sunday dinner or a jigs dinner and we're doing this typical roast, we just put it in until it pretty much falls apart, and you can take it apart with a fork. But if you don't like it that way, then the method would be Put it in the oven for 25 minutes on 425 degrees. When the buzzer goes off, then lower the temperature to 375 and then put it in there for 16 minutes for every pound of your roast. So that'll give you a medium cooked roast. So if that's what you want, that would be the method. If you've cooked roast before and you want to just put it in there until it's, typically you can tell that it's cooked, you can do that as well. So what I'm doing now is just frying the other side on the, and then we'll cook off those onions and the celery. So pretty much what I'm doing is just, again, frying off the roast here on all of the sides. This would probably take maybe 10 minutes, just a general fry of all of the sides. So what I'm going to do now is take the roast out, put it into my roaster, let it rest for a few minutes. Then I'm going to add in my onions and the celery, and there's one onion and one stick of celery. So pretty much put your onions and the celery back down into those delicious juices that was created by frying off your roast. And my roast is about 1.5 pounds. And again, it's not a lot of marbling meaning fat on it, but just enough to make it nice and flavorful. So we'll let that fry off there now, and then I'll show you what's next. So pretty much all I'm doing is just sauteing these onions and the celery. I only got one onion, one stick of celery, but again, you can have as much as you want. I love onions, I love pepper. I would slobber that, but if I'm cooking for somebody else, I don't want to do that. We're just going to have it till it's nice and caramelized. Then we're going to put it back in the roaster with the roast, but I'm going to lift the roast and put it in under the roast, all of these onions and the celery. So that's pretty much all I'm doing right now. This meal that I'm showing you here would be perfect for like a Sunday, and you're home from work and you just want a nice beautiful meal for your family, and you're going to cook this off first, onions and the celery. Then when it's baked in the oven, and then with the duff over the top, then you got your basic vegetables to serve with it, and then top everything with gravy. Oh my, that is so good. So this is done enough. I'm going to take it now, transfer it in with my roast. So pretty much what I'm going to do now is take the roast and just put it up to the side. And I'm going to get my cast iron frying pan. The handle don't usually be hot on my frying pan, but I've burned my hand pretty much all the time. So just pour all of that goodness out into the roaster. So then I'm just going to spread the onions that's already fried and the celery around, and then I'm going to put the roast onto it. After, I'm going to take 2 cups of broth or stock, whatever's available for you guys, and I'm going to just deglaze my frying pan. I'm going to put all of it into my frying pan, and just to take all of those bits away from the side that we had while we were frying up the roast and the onions and the celery. And then I'm going to pour it into the bottom of this roast, just leaving a small amount, maybe a cup, into the pan, and it looks something like this. And the reasons for leaving about a cup of water or a cup of broth into my frying pan, I don't need to boil my roast, I just need to bake it, but I want that steam to help cook that roast nice as well, because I want it nice and tender. And I want to leave this there to make gravy after, along with the drippings from this roast. So pretty much what we're doing now, I'm going to add in, this is a little package of OXO. I'm only going to be using a half pack. You could use bully beef seasoning. You could use, we would use here in Newfoundland gravy browning, and it would just color it. And you can also use Worcester sauce, which I'm pronouncing it wrong. So there's just about a half of a pack, and you're just putting it into your broth. I'm going to cover this now, and I'll tell you what's next. So you're going to be baking the roast now on a 425 degree oven for 25 minutes covered. Then you're going to lower the temperature to 375 for 16 minutes for every pound of your roast, if you want it to be a medium roast. But if you want just to cook it, you're busy in your home and you're going to come back and check it after being in there for about an hour, then you can do it that way. But if you want to follow these recipe methods, that's fine too. So that's what I'm going to do. And then what we're going to do next, while this is baking, we're going to make the duff that is going to go over the top when it's ready. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now is making the duff pastry that we'll be putting over our roast when it's cooked. And it's at the stage where we will be putting this on. And as we get to that stage, I'll tell you that. But right now what we're going to do is add the ingredients into the bowl, and I'll tell you how much of each one as I do it. So what I'm going to be doing now is adding 2 cups of sifted flour into the bowl, 1/3 of a cup of sugar. We're going to be adding all of the dry ingredients first, 4 teaspoonfuls of baking powder, and we're going to be using about 1/4 teaspoonful of sea salt. So we're just going to mix that together just till it's all equally incorporated, just like that. I'm going to be using 1/2 cup of chopped cold butter, and if you don't want to use butter, you could use margarine. So just pop that on in there, and you're going to pinch it together with your fingers. If you got a food processor or a big blender and you want to do it with that, you can, but this is just a rough mix with your hand. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. I'm just going to wash my hands and then I'll show you what's next. Okay, so we're just going to crack 1 large egg. I'm just going to put it into a bowl first to make sure I don't have any egg yolk. Pour it into 1/2 cup of evaporated milk. If you don't have evaporated milk and you wanted to use a different kind, you could use 2% or old, and just stir this around like this. And now I'm going to add it in with my dry ingredients. So all you're going to do now is pour in this full amount into your dry ingredients that was blended around with the cold butter, and that's my oven. It's ready to go. So I'll just set that one now on 25 minutes. So continue mixing it around. Like I said, my oven was ready then, and I had to stop for a second just to put it on the timer. So after you've blended the milk and the egg in through, now it's back to using your hand, or if you want to use, like I said, the food processor or your blender, not a blender, but your I guess whatever you got on hand, that's fine. But I'm just going to use one of my hands there now to do it. So pretty much after you've done that and you're kneading it down with your hand, or again in your food processor, form it into a ball. And after you form it into the ball, we're going to take it then and put it on our countertop, dusting it with a little bit of flour, because we're going to roll it out to the same size as your roaster that you're using for your baked roast that you put in your oven. And that way, because this is going to be a delicious pastry, you're going to bake on top of that roast when it's ready to do that part. So now I'm just going to put it out onto my counter. So what I'm going to be doing now is putting a small dusting of flour onto my board, or to the countertop, it doesn't matter. And you need a rolling pin, or you could use a bottle. I've used a bottle many times because I've not always owned a rolling pin. So what you're going to do is just spread the flour around the bottom and then start to roll. This is a delicious duff pastry and very easy to work with, and one that you could use to make if you're doing a stew and you wanted to put a pastry over the top of the stew. You can also use this same method for a duff pastry to put over it. So basically what I'm doing here now is just making it big enough to go over the top of my roaster, so that when my roast is done and I've made my gravy and I've put the roast back in, this pastry is not going to fall down into the roaster. So pretty much this is what it's going to look like. So that's pretty much all you need to do with your duff pastry. You just put that to the side on your counter and wait until your roast is ready to take out and go into the making the gravy stage. So right now pretty much that's what we're waiting for. So in that time that you're waiting, you can do your prep work, peel your vegetables, get those ready in your pot, and then I guess whatever you want to serve with that. And then the roast, when it's cooked, the first 25 minutes on 425, remember to lower it to 375, and engaging the size of your roast, 16 minutes per pound. After that on 375, and then I'll show you what's next. Okay, I'm at the stage now where I've lowered my temperature on the oven from 425 to 375, and I've put it back in for the duration of the cooking period. But what I'm going to be doing now, the last 20 minutes of baking the roast in the oven, or roasting the roast in the oven, I want to put the pastry on top. So I'm going to take my roast out of the oven and rest it on a plate for just a few minutes so I can make the gravy, and then put it back into the roaster and put the pastry over. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to be taking my roast out of the oven here now, and of course it's not cooked fully yet. It's at the second stage, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take my roast out onto the plate or a platter, and then I'm going to be taking all of these drippings from the roast and of course our onions and celery, and put it into my cast iron pan so we could make our gravy. Now if you don't want to put it back into a pan and you wanted to make your gravy right into the roaster, you can do that as well. But I want to make extra gravy because we always like to have a little extra to have on end. So what I'm going to do now is get this boiling here and make our paste, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to be taking my roast and put it right back into my roaster, and any of those drippings that came from the roast while it was resting in there. And I got my my broth, my stock or broth, whatever you want to call it, or whatever's available for you, I should say. There, I got half a cup of flour. If you can't use flour for dietary reasons, you could use a couple of tablespoonfuls of cornstarch. I got 1 cup of water, and I'm going to be pouring the flour into this mason jar with the water, and we're going to be making a little bit of a paste so we can make our gravy. Just shake it well. So the reason for putting it into a mason jar, you're going to more or less shake out any of the lumps of flour that kind of locks in there. You don't want your gravy to be lumpy. You want for it to be nice, silky, and nice. Anyone that likes gravy, you don't want lumps. So what you could do, if you want to make a little bit more gravy and you're thinking, oh, this is not going to be enough coming from the pot, what you can do, the vegetables that you peeled and had boiling in the pot, you can take it and probably run off about a cup or a half a cup, all depends how much gravy you want. So you're adding the beef, your stock, and your vegetable stock that you've made yourself with your vegetables all into your pan. Bring it to a nice rapid boil first, and then we're going to make our gravy. So just take your lid off your mason jar after you've shaken your flour and water well. The broth is boiling nice there now. At this point, if you want to taste your broth, if you want to add some more seasonings, some more salt, pepper, or even whatever you would like to add of your choice, you can. And then you're going to gradually pour the flour mixture into the hot broth, and you're going to watch it get thick each time, because you're not going to use all of this. I just got this amount, and that way if you wanted to have more gravy you could do that, but you only want it until it gets nice and thick. Okay, so after you get your gravy to the thickness that you want it nice and creamy. I love flour gravy, even though I know some people you can't have it, and cornstarch is just as nice, but I find my gravies is not as nice as flour. But anyway, we're going to take, after we've got the gravy to where we want it, I put the cover on my roast just to keep it warm while I was making the gravy. I'm going to take it now and pour half of the gravy over and into my roaster so that it's got the gravy there with the roast. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so after we got the gravy put over our roast, now I'm going to take the Duff pastry and put over the top, leaving some of the gravy for extra. And if you could pick the Duff up like this and put over, that's fine, but right now I got this removable placemat, so I'm just going to put it there. And now what I'm going to do now is just tuck it in and around before I put it back into the oven. So this is what the pastry looks like when you put it over your roast. I'm just going to take a little bit of the flour that's after dusting around the roaster, because I don't want for that to burn on. We're going to put this back into the oven now, just like it is, not covered, and we're going to put it there for about 20 minutes until it's golden brown, and you'll see it starting to lift and get just absolutely delicious. So meet me back here when it's cooked. Welcome back to Bonita's kitchen, and our roast done with a Duff pastry over the top and a creamy gravy. I'm going to go for it now in my oven and show you what it looks like. Okay, now this is a delicious roast done with a Duff pastry over the top, and of course our gravy in the bottom. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to cut a nice piece out, and we can almost even take it out and put it on the platter, but I don't want to break my pastry here now, but I'll just show you what it looks like. So pretty much all I'm going to do here now is just take a little bit of the pastry off so you can see the roast in there, and then I'm going to plate up some, and I also made, while I peel those vegetables that you've seen there in the front, and you can see the pastry cooked nice in the bottom, and I'm just going to put it there on my plate. I'll show you that after. And as you can see the roast there, and I'm going to cut a few pieces of the roast off, and I'll also put that into the plate. So this is your roast with a Duff pastry. Okay, so I'm going to take out this nice piece here that I got cut off. As you can see, just look how delicious it looks. A medium cooked, and it's got the pastry wrapped around it, but I like it like this too, because I can have more for myself. So what I'm going to do now is put a little bit in a different plate and put some gravy over it and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to take up a nice jalapeno now and put in my plate right here, and I'll just leave that there for you to see, and I'm going to put some gravy over. Now of course you see there's gravy in the pot, and there's also gravy that's nice and warm right here on the stove. So I'm just going to put gravy over it all. And that's what it's going to look like. Too good to eat. I hope I've made you hungry today, because I know I've made my husband, the cameraman, hungry. He's just over there drooling now to get at some of this delicious roast with the duff. So this is not a lot of work. You know, if you're cooking for your family, you can't feel that it's work anyway. And today, if you serve this to your family, they will be so grateful. So I'm going to have a little taste of mine, and I'll tell you what it tastes like. Okay, so I want to have a little bit of the roast, and the duff. So tender, and the gravy is creamy. The spices is perfect in it, but again, you can use what one you would like. And the duff, you can tell it's done nice, and it's got a little bit of flakiness to it, but just perfect. 2 thumbs up by Bonita's Kitchen. So before I end off our episode for roast with a duff pastry and like soaking in this gravy, I want to thank our viewer for requesting this one today. I'm sure we all are going to be so grateful for this. So this is as good as it gets, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. So if you would like to see more traditional and non-traditional Newfoundland cooking and viewers' requests, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and it will give you a prompt to let you know each time we post a new video. You can also visit us on www.bonitaskitchen.com. You can visit us on our Facebook page. Send us a tweet on Twitter. And if you would like to own your copy of Bonita's Kitchen Traditional Newfoundland Recipes and Cooking, just send us a message and we would love to tell you all the details. So, today, from our kitchen to yours, thank you for joining us, and you have a wonderful day.